This is IGN. From Critical Role comes a different kind of high fantasy adventure. This is your IGN review of The Mighty Nein Season 1 by Rafael Montemayor. Critical Role is a bona fide cultural phenomenon, one that helped change the face of Let's Plays, and together with Stranger Things, helped introduce a whole new generation to Dungeons & Dragons. When the franchise led one of the fastest and most successful crowdfunding campaigns ever, it also resulted in one of the best high fantasy TV shows in decades with The Legend of Vox Machina. That show managed to condense the hundreds of hours of the first Critical Role campaign into a cohesive scripted narrative at a fraction of the time, while also finding ways to preserve the improvisational nature of the campaign through some delightfully silly moments that made the characters feel alive. But this is not The Legend of Vox Machina, for Meta Pigeon and Titmouse are delivering a new kind of high fantasy adventure in The Mighty Nein, one that feels vastly different from the first Critical Role adaptation in all the right ways. The new show feels less like an improved Dungeons & Dragons campaign and more like a proper fantasy epic, one that is full of political intrigue, complicated characters, warring factions, and a mismatched group of losers who decide to band together and make a name for themselves. The spirit of Critical Role, its charm, Matt Mercer's world building, and the actor's ability to derail the most serious scenario with a healthy dose of childish humor is still here, and yet this is a more focused show than Vox Machina, with a darker tone, more fleshed out characters, and a more confident story that relies less on fantasy tropes and archetypes. This is still a comedy, and there are plenty of hysterically funny moments and character dynamics, but the approach feels more like a scripted fantasy story with improvised dialogue than an improvised fantasy story with scripted dialogue. A big part of how The Mighty Nein can pack so much world building and story into its first season is that each episode runs for around 40 minutes, more like Arcane and Invincible than the original Critical Role show, though the animation doesn't suffer as much as Prime Video's superhero show. The story moves at a slower pace, establishing the different characters before bringing them together. This is especially noticeable when it comes to Ashley Johnson's Yasha Nydorin, who is missing for most of the season. Unlike The Legend of Vox Machina, which is neatly divided into story arcs like the original campaign, The Mighty Nein feels like one singular story that extends beyond this first season. The last episode ends on a big cliffhanger that feels incorrectly placed. The season ends feeling like it's missing an episode or two, as the cliffhanger is not just a promise of more to come, but more like part one of a single story that carries on in the next episode, ending right as we're getting started. This is the problem with the change in pacing and structure for this show, as we spend so much time in world building and introductions that it comes across as a lot of build-up and half a climax. It might not be a problem in retrospect if we get another season and actually get to see the full party come together, but as a first season, it is kind of reminiscent of the way Netflix Marvel shows ended right after they finally show what audiences tuned in to see. The Mighty Nein introduces a complex world of political intrigue, action, and arcane mysteries. The show has its own unique feel that makes it stand out as more than just a continuation of Vox Machina, with a new group of distinct and flawed heroes, and a bigger focus on expanding the scope of the story. With longer episodes, the pacing slows down to deepen the characters and the world around them, though it comes at the expense of a long delay in the formation of the titular group. Though darker, the show still has that familiar Critical Role flavor, especially in the standout characters of Nod and Jester. The Mighty Nein Season 1's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest updates on The Mighty Nein, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.